I don't think it's an exaggeration if I say that Guts has one of the most difficult and darkest backstories in all of anime and manga. From the way he was born to his early childhood with Gambino, the events of the eclipse all have dark moments that would break your typical MC. Kirito could never hope to remain sane if he even experienced a smidge of Guts' suffering. That's how you know who the true Black Swordsman is. But in all seriousness though, Guts' backstory is very dark. That man was born from his mother's corpse who was hanged from a tree. First of all, I have to applaud the concept. The fact that Miura could come up with such disturbing fresh scenarios is brilliant. I've never seen a baby being born from its mother's corpse in any media except Berserk. I like that it's self-explanatory. It would make sense that if a pregnant lady got hanged, the baby would just slide out, as weird as it may sound. Although it doesn't really work that way in real life, because a baby instantly dies if still in the mother's womb when the mother dies, but it's a fictional story, so you read it with a bit of sense of disbelief. The major events that made Guts be who he is was in the events of his early childhood, with Gambino acting as a sort of guardian for him. Since Gambino's mercenary band and Shisu, Guts' adoptive mom, found him beneath his mother's hanged corpse, you can tell Gambino was a huge red flag. From the fact that he only allowed Shisu to care for Guts because he thought baby Guts will die within a few days. He never wanted anything to do with Guts right from the beginning. And the fact that the mercenary bands, who are obviously medieval people and very superstitious, they view strange events like taking Guts, who was found in a strange circumstance like being born from his mother's corpse, as a bad omen. That didn't help Guts in his childhood at all. Guts' existence was smeared right from the beginning, and the only person who genuinely cared for him in that mercenary band is his adoptive mom. She dies when Guts was only 3 years old, and the way Gambino talks about her, even though it is implied that they have a relationship, is absolutely horrible. Some members of the mercenary band asks him if the baby he had with Shisu was his because she had a miscarriage before she found Guts, and he replies back by saying who knows who the father is. We've been given many subtle hints that Gambino is not gonna be a great person, and he wasn't even present at Shisu's dying moments. And this man is the one who's going to be taking care of Guts after Shisu's death. We have a time skip of sorts where we see Gambino training Guts with the sword and caring if the sword is too large for him, and we see Gambino taking pleasure in besting a child. Just shows you how petty and childish Gambino is. And we see an instant where Guts beats Gambino, showing us the latent potential Guts has, which we all know since Guts becomes an absolute beast in the future, and Gambino gets cut and absolutely loses it and punches Kid Guts in the nose. So much so that the other mercenary watching their sparring intervene and even tell Gambino that he took it too far. Guts is passed out and can't even stand by his own. That's how hard Gambino hit Guts. Just shows you how pathetic of a man Gambino is. And at this point in the story, you clearly hate Gambino and come to understand that Guts will suffer even more if he stays with Gambino. But then we see Gambino admit to himself that he was wrong and that he took it too far. These types of scenes makes you think there's a bit of good deep down in Gambino's heart, and he might turn out to be a good person in the future. But this type of behavior is a very common trait of abusers, a very popular tactic called the warm cold tactic. The perpetrator is sometimes throwing the victim in the positive reinforcement to confuse the victim, and the rest of the time is being very abusive and cold. We see this the following day after the incident. Gambino approaches Guts and gives him medicine for the wound he inflicted on him, and Kid Guts, not knowing any better, not knowing that he's being gaslit, thanks him. And you just feel bad for Guts, this naive kid who doesn't know any better, surrounded with people who don't care for him, is just very suffocating to watch. The only thing that doesn't let him down in this world is his oversized sword, which he hangs on tightly and which gives him a sense of safety. You've got a battle happening in which Guts gets his first kill in the battlefield, and soon after he's about to get killed and gets saved by Gambino, which reinforces the misguided trust and belief that Guts has in Gambino. He even starts giving his earnings to Gambino, who shamelessly spends it on gambling or women, and Guts doesn't see any problem with it. And this is a result of Guts not knowing any better, because that's the people he is surrounded with all his life up to this point. And the worst of them, Donovan abuses Guts in one of the most disturbing scenes in manga. He tells him that he paid Gambino to have Guts for the night, but Guts doesn't believe him. How could he? Gambino is the only person that has shown him kindness besides Shisu, although Gambino's kindness was twisted. And the way Gambino just casually accepts the money from Donovan is just astounding. Just goes to show you how much of a terrible human being he is. And from what transpired with Donovan, we come to understand why Guts doesn't like being touched. We saw that Guts really dislikes being touched to the point that he flips out on people, which might paint him as an unlikable character in the Black Swordsman arc. I've covered that in my previous video in depth. Guts asks Gambino and Gambino acts like nothing happened. This is the moment that sealed for me that Gambino is irredeemable. Guts, after that whole ordeal, is absolutely furious and wants to take revenge, so he waits until he finds a good moment to attack Donovan, which he does with a crossbow. He puts his sword to Donovan's mouth and screams at him to say the name of the person he paid. We can see that Guts is in absolute denial. He doesn't want to believe his father figure, the person Guts looks up to, could do this to him, and that scene was absolutely sad. After Gambino gets struck and loses his leg and he's passed out on his bed, we see Guts thinking to himself that Gambino acted like he was always superior to him, that he was selfish and cold. Guts also noted this about Griffith. That's why Guts gravitated so much to Griffith, because it reminded him of the same feelings that he felt toward Gambino. The familiarity was intoxicating to him that he became blindly devoted to Griffith, and due to that we see Guts committing many atrocities because of Griffith's orders. Both Griffith and Gambino are cold and uncaring to the people around them in order to achieve their goals. Both don't have the same feelings that Guts has for them, and Guts can't detect that they are bad people because of his abusive upbringing with Gambino. Also explains Guts' attitude in the Black Swordsman arc, where he was cold and uncaring, mimicking Gambino and Griffith in order to achieve his goal of killing Griffith, and that is just brilliant writing. Gambino was the reason there is a hole in Guts, where Guts tried to fill that hole by seeking Griffith's approval, and this makes you think maybe Guts was not that naive in regards to Gambino. Gambino was just all Guts had. All the blatant abuse that Gambino inflicted on Guts, that anyone from the outside who sees it could point at it and clearly tell that it is abuse, but Guts doesn't know it because he doesn't know what genuine love looks like, so he views all the abuse that Gambino inflicted on him as normal, and we see Gambino mumbling as he's passed out Shisu's name, and the only person who ever truly loved Guts, and Guts hold his abusive guardian and starts sobbing. For us, the audience who knew that Gambino sold Guts, this is a very tough scene to watch. Additionally, from this scene we can tell that Gambino really did love Shisu, and maybe he abuses Guts because Guts reminds him of her death. Mind you, we only started seeing Guts and Gambino interacting after Shisu's death, so maybe he was kind to him before then. Gambino is a terrible person. He really resents the fact that he has to take care of Guts. When Guts was just 3 years old, Gambino abuses him, shouting at him saying, "Who do you think feeds you?" Maybe we can understand Gambino because many mercenaries were primarily motivated by the promise of wages, so having to take care of a kid will eat away from Gambino's wages, and it was definitely not on Gambino's plan to raise a kid, and that is why Gambino wanted Guts dead and didn't care for him much. Also, we can see that when he finally went mad and was about to kill Guts, he blamed Guts for Shisu's death and tries to strike him and Guts kills him instead. The other mercenaries find out and they also chase after Guts to try and kill him. One of the mercenaries even notes that they should have never have picked Guts from the place where they found him as a baby, and that now they are paying for it with Guts killing Gambino. Gambino is viewed by many in the Berserk fanbase as someone who is plain evil and irredeemable. Even I've said that he's a terrible human being in this video, but that may misguide our view from seeing the nuances of his character. Maybe by the end of it, when he was trying to kill Guts, maybe then he was a villain, but he had tender moments with Guts where he looked like he cared for him. As I've said before, Gambino is the reason that there is a hole in Guts, where Guts tried to fill that hole by seeking Griffith's approval. Gambino has left a long-lasting scar inside of Guts, and we see the effects throughout Guts' adulthood where he hates his demon child. You can see the parallels. Guts abusing his demon child because it reminds him of the atrocities that Griffith committed, and Gambino hating Guts because he reminds him of Shisu's death. And again, that is just brilliant writing. We also see that time when Guts brought some of the money he got paid to Gambino, where he was feeding his dog after he got crippled, and Gambino tells Guts to bring dog food, and Guts is surprised that Gambino would want to spend money on dog food rather than woman in booth, and Gambino just strikes Guts unlike any time he hit him. At least it felt that way to me. And after that incident, Guts went to his tent and threw all the money in rage, and I can understand Guts' pain. Imagine trying your best to cheer up a person, trying to get their validation, and they just reject it in the most horrible way. And we see hints of the rage that Guts is developing, that rage that he becomes well known for in future arcs. It was after the incident with Donovan that Guts showed his rage by breaking a barrel in half with his sword. I don't understand why the Berserk adaptations skip over the Donovan scene. I know it's disturbing and uncomfortable to watch, but that's what content warnings are for. By not showing the Donovan scene, you're taking away something pivotal that leads to Guts being who he is, and I hope any future Berserk adaptations don't skip over content just because they are disturbing. They show the scene where Casca gets violated by Griffith both in the 1997 and the Berserk movies, but they skip over the Donovan scenes. It just doesn't make sense. But I digress. Guts is a character that goes through so much suffering, and he keeps pushing through no matter what. After he's broken and battered and his trust is betrayed many times again and again, he just keeps fighting on, and that is why many people, including myself, love Guts and the Berserk story. That if unimaginable pain has befallen this character and he keeps moving forward regardless, why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't I? But in order for Guts' character arc to be completed, I think he needs to go back to where it all began, with Gambino. I think he needs to realize that Gambino wasn't a good person. I don't think I've ever seen Guts blaming Gambino for any bad thing that has occurred in his life, and I don't think Guts has acknowledged that in the story yet. If you've made it this far, please make sure to like the video and also don't forget to subscribe, and with that said, see you in the next one.